Hello, this is Will Brooks, and my mission is to make coding fun and easy to learn. In this video, we will create a CSS file and link that to our HTML file. We will then start styling our HTML page. So let's get started. In our last video, we created all the HTML. Now we're going to create the CSS. It's going to be so exciting. But first, we need to create a new file. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to call it style.css, just like that. Okay, now let's go back to index.html. Now we need to link the index.html to the style. We need to link the two files together. We're going to go here where it is the title, at the end of the title, and I'm going to hit return. And again, VS Code has a shortcut, but I'm going to just put link because we're going to link the two together, two pages together, link, and then I'm going to hit return, and there we go. So that's the syntax you need. It's the less than sign, link, rel, relationship equals style sheet, and then href, that's going to be the link, and we're going to call that style.css, just like we have over here on the left side. Great, so now we have that, and now they are connected. Now we want to do a test to make sure that they actually are linked. So let's go to, first we need to open up live server. So let's go to index.html, let's right click it, and it says open with live server. And boom, it pops up right there. Let's get VS Code back up, and let's get VS Code off to the left side. Perfect. Now, let's see our test we can do. Let's go to CSS. Now we have index at the top left, and then CSS right here. Let's click on CSS, and let's just do change the background color to red, and let's see what that looks like. So background color, and let's say red, and there we go. It changes. Let me open this up, and you can see it's red, the background color. So they are linked. Great. We don't want red, but that's okay. That was just a test. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and then we can start styling our HTML. We can start styling this. Fantastic. The first thing I want to do is declare the font size in HTML here in our CSS, curly bracket, and we're going to change the font size to 10 pixels. By default, the font size is 16 pixels. Now, I'm doing that because I want to use rem, R-E-M, which is root element, and rem bases itself off of the HTML. They base off the HTML element, so it's going to read it as 1 rem equals 10 pixels. Now, if I didn't do that, and I didn't change the font size to 10 pixels in HTML, it would be by default 1 rem would equal 16 pixels. So if I did 2 rem, that would equal 32 pixels, and it makes the math a little bit more difficult. Plus, pixels are not scalable, they're absolute units, and rem, which are root elements, are responsive units, so it makes it a little bit better, and I'll create another video on that. But just so you know, 1 rem equals 10 pixels because I declared it in HTML. The next thing I want to do is I want to style the body, and let me show you where that is. Okay, if we go back to the HTML page right here, and the body is basically everything I have highlighted here from line 10. So basically it's the whole content, everything in our page is the body. So we're going to just do a general styling of the body right now. And the next thing I want to do is I want to change the font size, okay? I changed to 10 pixels in HTML, but I don't want to keep it there. I just wanted to do that so I can base the rem equals 1 rem equals 10 pixels. So now let's go back to font size, and I want to actually make that 16 pixels. So in order to do that, if 1 rem equals 10 pixels, it's going to be 1.6 rem, because 1.6 times 10 equals 16, and boom, our pixels are back to normal. They're back to not normal, but back to the 16 pixels, which is what I like. Everything in HTML, basically website, any site, contains a box. So if we look here on the right side, Michael Brecker, that's our H1. That is actually a box. You just can't see it because there's no border around the box. You got your P tag, there's a box around this. Your image, there's a box around that. So what I like to do is, especially for beginners, and it's easy to see, is if you create a border around some of these elements. So I'm going to create a border around the body, and we're going to we're just going to make it 0.5 rem, which would be 5 pixels, and then let's say solid, and then let's just color it red, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. There we go. So let's open this up right here, and see we have the border around the body now, the whole body. That's the border right there. And like I said, it just makes it easier to see when we make changes. So I will show you what I mean by that. Now we need to change the font. I'm not crazy about the font here on the right. So we're going to go into Google Fonts. So let's go to our Chrome here. I'm going to click on the plus button to get a new tab here, and let's just open this up. And let's type in Google Fonts. There it is, Google Fonts. Open Google Fonts up. Google Fonts are great. Now, what I want to show you, before I show you the font I chose, I want to go to Nosifer because this is just the coolest font, and I just want to show you this. Look at this. It's called Nosifer. I'm going to click on this. There's only one style. You know, a lot of times there are different styles. There's only a regular 400 for this font, but it's drippy and oozy. And if you scroll down, it says about Nosifer. Nobody knows where Nosifer comes from. It emanates a dark stench as it drips from the internet. How cool is that? I'd love to one day use this font, but in any case, I'm not going to. We are going to use Poppins. Not related to Mary Poppins, one of my favorite musicals. Poppins, let's go. There we go, Poppins. Now, Poppins right here has 18 styles. So let's click on this. Styles meaning, for example, thin 100, thin 100 italic. We're going to use 400 regular 400 right here. Now, I'm going to select this style right here on the right. And then it opens up right here. So if it's selected family. Now, if I close this and you say, where did it go? If you go all the way to the top right, there's that little red thing. Let me just hit Command plus so I can blow this up a little bit here so you can see it better. Right there at the top right, you see view your selected families. So once you select it, it goes up here. Okay, let me back this up here and reset this to 100. So now I'm going to click on here to open that up. So it says Poppins regular 400. Now there's two ways you can get this font. You can have the link or you can import it. Now I'm going to import it. So I'm going to click this button here. And if you see how it has this style tag here and the ending tag here, I don't need that because I'm going to put it into CSS, my external CSS. So I'm just going to click here at and I'm going to copy here. I'm going to copy everything in between the style tags. Okay, I'm going to right click and copy. So now I'm going to minimize this. And now we want to go back to our CSS and we're going to go, I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. We're going to go all the way to the top. And we're gonna put it at the top. We're gonna hit return. Oh no, let's go all the way to the top again. Okay, return. Let's return 3 times. And I am going to just paste it right at the top. There. So our font is at the top now. Now in our body, we need to add the font family. So once more, let's go back to Google Fonts. And at Google Fonts, below where we copied the style there, it says CSS rules to specify families. All you need to do is copy the font family right there. See at the bottom there? And it says Poppins. And if Poppins is not available on the browser, it'll take the next font, which is sans serif. And then right click, copy. And then let's go back to our CSS and let's just make this bigger. And we're going to go right after the font size. And then I'm just going to hit paste right here. Boom. And then we have the font there. Now let's minimize this or get this to the left side. And let's see our font. Let's get rid of this tab and go back to our project. And you can see the font has changed. So if you can, let me just comment this out a minute so you can see the change. If we look at our sheet there, you see it changed back. The font changed back to what it was. And if I get rid of the comment out, you can see it changes to Poppins. Now we have Poppins in there. And that is basically how you get a font from Google Fonts. Next, I want to talk about line height. Now, line height is a little bit tricky at first, but once you get it, you get it. And I'm going to explain what line height is. There's a lot of misconception about line height. So let's go over here. So a lot of people think, I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. Let's Command plus, and then let's just click on a line here, a sentence here. Okay, a lot of people think line height. Let's go from the H. They think it's from the H, the bottom of the H, all the way to the next line, but it's not. It's actually, line height adds pixels above and below the H. That's the line height right there. Okay, so let's go back and see what that means here. So the first thing I want to do, let me just bring this back down to, I'm going to hit Command minus, and then I'm going to reset it here back to 100%. Okay, now let's go over here. I'm going to change this REM to, it's 1.6 REM equals 16 pixels. Okay, I'm just going to change it to 16 pixels for now. It means the same thing, but it's probably easier to see if I have it at 16 pixels right there. We'll change it back later. So a lot of times with line height, you don't add a value with line height, and let's say I put a 1 there. So what does that mean? What value does it take? Does it take the 10 pixels up here? Does it take 16 pixels? Does it take some other kind of pixels? It basically takes the 16 pixels here. So it takes the pixels in the same body. So 1 equals 16 pixels. So if we look to the right, that's very difficult to read. What does that mean? That means that there's no buffer above, there's no pixels above, there are no pixels below, and it's very difficult for the eyes to read, and it's not recommended. So if we open that up a little bit, you can see that better, right? So we don't want to do that. The average, the default setting is usually 1.2, which is 120% of the font size. So if I put on 1.2 here, so what does 1.2 mean? It means 16 pixels times 1.2, because you always want to be, the line height always wants to be bigger than the font. Otherwise, like we showed with 1 equals 16 pixels, it's hard to read. So that means you take the 16 pixels times 1.2, that gets us 19.2 pixels. So a line height, if I hover over here and highlight this, that total is 19.2 pixels high. And what you do is you take the 19.2 pixels minus the 16 pixels, that's the font size height, that leaves you with 3.2 pixels left. You divide that by 2, so it comes out to 1.6 pixels above the font and 1.26 pixels below it. That's your buffer right there at 1.2. Okay, now I want to change mine to 1.5. So 1.5, look, if you look on the right side, it's easier to read. I like that. So how many pixels would that be? 1.5 times 16 pixels comes out to 24 pixels. All right, so that means your font size is 16 pixels, right? It's 16 pixels. That means there are 8 pixels above, 4 pixels above and 4 pixels below. That's 4 plus 4 is 8 plus 16. That gives us the 24 pixels. And I think that's very easy to read. It's very nice to read. Now, let's say I do want to give this a value, and I put 1.5 REM. And let's see how it changes the right side. Whoa! Look at that. 1.5 REM changes the right side. Now, why did that happen? Well, because, remember, root element REM takes the font size of the HTML up here all the way at the top of the 10 pixels, right? So if we take 10 times 1.5, that's 15 pixels. Well, the font size here is 16 pixels, so it's less than the font size, so it's crushed together. So that's, in order to make this correct, remember, it's 10 pixels per 1 REM, and this is, we want 24 pixels. We need to change this to 2.4. And if we change that to 2.4, perfect. That is exactly what we want. So 2.4 REM, because it's 2.4 times 10 is 24 pixels. And if we just take this off again, change this back to 1.5. And then that's going to say the same thing, because 1.5 times 16 pixels here is going to give us 24 pixels. Okay, hopefully that cleared up a little bit of line height. Now I'm going to go back and change this to 1.6 REM. 1.6 REM. Next, I want to change the font color. Now, it's kind of strange with CSS. You know, you have background color. It changes the color, but you don't have font color. So if it's just color, it means the font color. It doesn't say font color. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So first, if I change the font color, if I put red here, and we look, see all the color, see all the font change to red. Now we're going to use, now black and white, it's fantastic. White background, black font is good, but better is like a charcoal gray. So if we put hashtag 333 and semicolon, it changed it slightly from black to like a dark gray, dark charcoal. And that is supposed to be a little bit better for your eyes. And then we're going to change the margin next. Now, this is where that border comes into play, where you can see where it changes. So let's look at that border on that. We have that red border, right? So with the margin, we're going to set it to 0. There's always a default margin on the browser. So if we set that to 0, boom, you see how the red kind of came out to the outside. Now it's really on the side. So let's take that away for a second. Once more, let's take that away. Let's let it go back. Okay, I'm going to open this up. Okay, now you can see up the top here, there's a white space between here and the bar. Again, there's a white space. It's not flush against the side. So if I minimize this once more, and then we put margin as 0, it's going to pull everything back, touch the side. Here we go. 0. And boom, it touches the side now. And you wouldn't be able to see that if you didn't have the border there. So here we go. See, now it's all the way against the side there. Look on the left, right, top, and bottom. Perfect. So that's why I use that border of red, even though we're going to take that off later, because you can see that. Now, the last thing we want to do in the body is we want to align the text, all the text to the center. So we're going to do text align, and then we're going to type in center, because we want everything in the center. Boom. Puts everything in the center. Let's open that up. And now everything's in the center. We're going to do more with the text because we don't want the text all like this. We want to kind of align it all to the left, but in the center. But we'll do that when we get to the unordered list and the list down there. And the quote as well down at the bottom. But right now, that'll work for us. That's all we need to do in the body at this point. Thank you for watching, and please continue on to part 3 of this coding project. See you in the next video.